to WRPB and WRPB Studios. Okay, so you guys have been with me a long, long time, and I always talk about my two favorite subjects, which is food. So if someone wants to come on and bring me food, they're my heroes. Real estate, which I love, and those who know me know how much I talk about my guns and shooting, and how cathartic it is to go to a range and shoot. Well, with me is Matthew Olivo from Continental Shooting Center.
Morning.
And you were in Stewart.
We are.
Okay, so my first question is, why'd you get into this?
It was a terrible mistake. No. I've been involved in the industry for about 18 years here locally in the Treasure Coast. I owned a popular gun store in Port St. Lucie Boulevard for several years, and after selling that business, retained my license and just kind of did gun shows and internet sales. And I had a good friend of mine and partner who was involved in the range side of the business and wanted to open another gun range. So myself, he and his brother started looking at some options and found out that the old Stewart Shooting Center had gone up for sale, and met with the owners and the broker and just kind of decided we were going to pull the trigger and do it.
How ironic that you decided to pull the trigger and, and do
No
it.
pun intended.
Okay, so the industry has gone through some changes.
It has.
Okay, since you got into the industry, what are some of the changes you've seen? And every state is different.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the changes you've seen here?
Yeah, so I haven't seen much change on the federal level since I've been doing this. As far as localized state levels, different states have enacted different assault weapon bans and that kind of stuff. Some of them have let their bans lapse, Florida being one of them. The federal government hasn't done a whole lot to change things. There was the federal mandate on bump fire stocks, which was recently overturned by the Supreme Court. That law still is in effect in Florida because Florida adopted its own state law banning those. There's the pistol brace issue that's going on currently, where that's working its way through the courts. So,
A pistol brace being something that almost makes it like a rifle?
So essentially what a pistol brace was designed for originally was it had it was a piece that would attach to a pistol and then would strap to your forearm.
Okay.
The point of contention with it is people, I shouldn't say everyone, but people weren't necessarily buying it for that purpose. They were using it as a de facto stock, which led to the ATF trying to ban them. I don't think it's gonna stick because
Right.
it's following along the same legal precedent as the bump stocks did, and if that got overturned, if I were to guess, this will too, but we'll see. It's for the Supreme Court to figure out.
Well, in Florida, you now no longer need a concealed permit.
Correct.
You think that's a positive move or not?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I do appreciate the governor's standpoint of, people shouldn't have to ask their government permission to protect themselves. I do think they should have mandated some kind of a training prerequisite, because even though you don't need that permit to carry a firearm, there are certain places you're prohibited from carrying firearms in, and different legal standpoints that people may not necessarily know. All they're seeing on the news is, hey, guess what, you don't have to have a permit to carry a gun in Florida anymore.
Right.
But they don't realize there's, certain places that are still off limits, even with a permit, constitutional carry aside. And
When I got my concealed weapon permit, it was ironic because even though I took the course, there was so much I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I was curious about, because I had my mom who was 90 years old, and she was in and out of hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if I could legally carry it in a hospital or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I was told was, you can carry it in a hospital as long as it doesn't have, I hate to say it this way, but a mental ward.
Well, and so that's something that's been debated a little bit too, because to some extent, almost any medical provider is going to address mental health on some level. I mean,
Right.
even your primary doctor, you go in and they say, oh, hey, Joe, how you feeling today? Well, I've been feeling a little down lately. Well, now we may start treating you for depression. So now that physician is treating you for a mental health issue. So when I do the concealed weapon permit classes, when I personally teach them in our facility, which isn't that often because we have instructors that do it now, I generally tell people just leave your firearm secured somewhere. You know, to me that's a very, very gray area as far as who's treating mental health and not.
The other thing, which was surprising to me, is you cannot carry a firearm in any federal area.
Correct.
So, if I wanted to mail a letter, this is what I was told, I can't even have my gun in the car in the parking lot. This is federal
At the
property.
post office, that's yeah. I mean, again,
So you have to park off property, okay, leave your gun, and which is really kind of interesting that you can't even leave it.
Sure.
You can't even lock it up in the parking lot.
Yep. And a lot of people don't even realize that. I mean, there's a number of places that don't, polling stations. When you
Right.
go to vote, technically you can't bring a firearm to a polling station.
Not even in the parking lot.
I would defer to legal counsel on that one. I don't know that I'd feel
Okay, so
comfortable making that call one
I
way.
would say,
I personally would not.
right. I would say, don't take it with you.
Right.
Okay.
Would be my.
Better to err on the side of caution,
Correct.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
You know, and so I mean, I found that kind of interesting. Now, what I've seen since we are allowed to have a weapon without a concealed permit is a lot of places are putting up signs, put the big circle with a gun and a line through it.
Mm.
Do they have a right? I mean, I have a right to do it because it's my business, but I don't know if legally I can do anything but chase them out.
That's essentially the most you could do is if you discovered someone was carrying a concealed weapon on them while they're on your property and you had a sign posted, you could ask them to leave. Now, if they refuse to leave, then that starts to become a legal issue with armed trespassing and that kind of thing. But
What I find interesting is in a lot of laws, more over in the tax laws, and the immigration laws, but now we have this issue with firearms, and it's always been an issue because just because you get a concealed back then doesn't mean you can take it across the state lines, because
mm-hmm.
there's reciprocity some places, but not. And I think part of the problem that people have is that they don't do any research.
Right, and we're advising anyone who asks us, should I take the class and get the permit or not? We're telling them yes.
Of course.
Constitutional carry is, again, a step in the right direction, but it's very limited in scope. It doesn't allow you to, go outside the confines of Florida. It doesn't waive the 3-day wait. With the permit, you can go to 38 different states right now, whereas, constitutional carry, it's just here, so.
Okay, so this is a question, because you taught the class and stuff. So one of the questions I have, and almost everybody I talk to who has a weapon and carries it, has the same question. I get stopped for speeding. Do I tell the officer that I have a weapon, or do I not?
My personal choice in that matter
Right, these are just opinions, because
Yeah,
I don't know there are any definitive answers.
I generally, typically the first question you hear from a law enforcement officer when they walk up to your car is license, registration, proof of insurance.
Right.
I typically already have my permit with those documents ready by the time they get to my car. That kind of subtly lets them know that there's possibly a firearm in the vehicle. And at that point, I just wait to see how they want to handle it. Florida is the law enforcement in Florida are very, very used to people carrying guns. I mean, there's over 2.5 million concealed carry permit holders in the state of Florida. So it's not as taboo of a subject as it used to be. So generally, and not that I get stopped very often, but the couple times it has happened, they've usually just advised me to kind of, okay, where is it? Oh, okay, it's in your glove box. Just leave it there for the duration of the stop, kind of thing.
Interesting. I never know. And it's like, what do I do if I get stopped? And like you, thank God I don't get stopped that often. But it's one of my concerns of, if you open that door and you're carrying on you, are they going to frisk you? If
I've never personally had that interaction with them on that way. you know, again, the permit, you know, giving them the permit kind of in advance lets them know that you've already been checked by the state and your background's clear, or you wouldn't have gotten the permit issued. So
Right.
to me, I think that kind of puts their minds at ease a little bit when, you know, you're doing them the courtesy of letting them know up front, because you don't really have to tell them unless they ask. So by preemptively doing that, a lot of them, I believe, look at that as almost a professional courtesy. So, you know, again, that's my personal advice on it.
Uh-huh. Right. We're not giving any legal advice here. We're just giving opinions
Correct.
and experiences that we've had. You know, for me, you know, the philosophy is license doesn't mean that everybody's going to follow that rule.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I used to do surveillance cameras, and it's an interesting scenario. All they did was keep honest people honest.
Yep.
The bad guy's going to be the bad guy no matter what. My wife's Canadian, and they went through that. Hey, you have to register all your guns, and then they wanted to take all the guns away, and they did. But they still have shootings. It doesn't change anything.
No. And criminals, by their definition and title, are not going to follow the law.
Of course
so when
not.
when constitutional carry at first kind of passed, people were in a panic because, oh my God, now criminals are going to carry guns. Well, no, they've been doing that anyway.
Right.
Now the not criminals can carry guns and defend themselves a little more easily, and that's what really I think this accomplished. I think it is prompting more people to kind of come out of their shell a little bit with firearms. We've had a huge uptick at our business with new firearm owners because, you know, so, and that's just misconception. Some people, well, I never got the permit, so I couldn't buy a gun. Well, no, anyone can buy a gun if you can pass the background check. The permit doesn't do anything special for that other than
Right.
allow you to carry it on you concealed when you're out and about, or waive the 3-day wait. So,
You know, when they were talking about taking guns away, I said to everybody, I will give up my gun the day you take all the guns away from the people in Okeechobee. Okay? I don't think they're giving up their guns so fast.
and listen, there's over 300 million guns in this country. The idea of the government going door to door, knocking on doors, collecting them, that's just, I don't personally ever see that taking place. I mean, there would just be too much resistance from the populace on that.
And I think that the ones that choose to give up their guns are the ones that would never cause a problem anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The ones that would never cause a problem. All right, let's talk about Continental Shooting Center.
Mm-hmm.
How many lanes do you have to shoot in?
So we have 2 different stalls. There are 5 lanes apiece. They are 25 yards, so about 75 feet. We use a shredded rubber media trap system, so it's a little quieter than most of the ranges because the rubber kind of deadens the sound a little bit in the impact. Very state-of-the-art ventilation system.
Did you change the ventilation system since you took over?
We did not. We did some upkeep on it.
Okay.
And one of the reasons we didn't want to change it altogether is that there's really not a better design out there than what we have right now.
Okay.
The previous owner who originally built the facility spared no expense when it came to the ventilation. It was, from what I understand, about $250,000 for the ventilation system there.
Well, I mean, I have a lung illness. I lost 40% of my lung function.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shot there, and I left there still breathing fine and
Yep.
not coughing up a storm. What else do you do this? You teach the class there?
Yep, we do several types of training. We do the concealed weapon permit class. We do everything from, you know, kind of entry level one-on-one training. We have a couple instructors who do some much more advanced training. We are currently working on finding an instructor to do the HR 218, which is essentially a carry permit for current or retired law enforcement. It's kind of a specialty permit that they can get. So we will be offering that again. The instructor we had was no longer teaching that class, so we're seeking another one out.
You also sell firearms?
We do. Yep, we sell firearms, long guns, handguns, pistols. You know,
New and used?
New and used. We also have a rental program. With the rental program, we essentially you pay $25 per hour, not per gun. So you can kind of swap them out as you decide to, and then if you end up finding the gun you like and purchasing it, we just take the rental charge off the purchase price.
Oh, interesting.
So,
And I think I think that is so important because I have my gun, and we're talking about it, and it being short, and it's very hard for me to find a gun to carry. So I went out and I bought the gun that I have, and I'm not happy with it.
Mhm.
Now I have this gun, I'm not happy with it, and I got to go buy another one and hope, unless I go try to rent a gun and see what the story is. Okay, do you know your inventory, basically?
So we sell, trade, and transfer about 300 guns a month. So I try to. I have a fairly good recollection, but guns come through there so
I'm
quickly.
looking for an Ithaca SKB 100. It's a side-by-side shotgun.
Yep, I know I don't have one of those. That one's easy.
Do you know, I had one up north, and when everybody had 30-30 and all these guns with fancy scopes to go hunting,
Mhm.
I used that with no scope and no nothing. And I was the first one in my group to get a buck. And I loved that gun. And then someone broke into my house, and they broke the gun, they broke the stock, they bent the barrel. I mean, it was garbage. And I have been looking, I would say a good 66, good 40 years for that gun. Very hard to find that gun. Don't know why. Very hard. I think it's harder to find now with side by side.
A lot of companies are coming out with some newer production models that kind of mimic some of the older models. So I'm sure there's something that's fairly close.
I have a Remington 870 as a shotgun, so it's a pump, and it was my dad's and stuff. But I had always sworn that I would never carry a gun because I don't want to lose my temper and whatever. But we're in a world today where, I hate to say it, if you don't have a gun, you're crazy.
Mhm.
You're crazy, and I don't care if you're in Florida or anywhere else. It's crazy what's happening out there, and I don't think people understand the philosophy of guns. You don't. If you're going to use a gun to protect yourself, it's going to be, I don't know, 10, 15 feet at the most, correct?
Typically, most self-defense shootings are under that range. Yeah.
Right. So, people say, well, I go to the range and I shoot at 100 yards or 75. I'm saying if I get into a gunfight like that, my pistol's not going to do anything for me. Okay.
Well, and crime it's ever changing. 30 years ago, mass shootings weren't really something anyone worried about. Where now, engaging a target from a further distance is a possibility. If you're in a Walmart or a shopping center or something like that, and a shooting takes place, but that's not what the average person finds themselves facing.
Right.
It's usually very close, very personal. If I want to steal something from you, I got to be close enough to take it. If I want to, beat you up, I got to be close enough to get my hands on you.
So when Continental teaches the course, do they teach the fact that if you can get away, get away?
It's up to the individual instructor. I mean, the fight or flight are kind of the two go-to routes.
Right.
When I teach the concealed weapon class, I generally tell people don't get yourself involved into something you don't have to. Because Florida does have some very pro laws as far as helping someone who's unable to help themselves, which I would always encourage somebody to help fellow man if they can, but you may find yourself getting into more than you can handle at that point. So,
And I think from the little bit that I know, and that's why you go to a place like Continental Shooting Center to learn, is even if I stood my ground and I had every reason, I still have stuff to deal with until it gets through the system. Correct?
Oh, sure. Yep.
And that's surely not worth anything. All right, we're at the top of our time. How do people find you? Where are you located?
So we're at 3091 Southeast J Street in Stewart, which is right off Commerce, very close to Treasure Coast, Harley, and Walmart in that part of town. They can also find out all the information on our website, which is continentalscfl.com.
Matt, thank you for coming on.
No problem.
Thank you for the information. Everybody, I've said this a million times, always use a professional. Because if you don't, it's going to run you 5 times more in finance and 10 times more at least in frustration. Go to Continental, go check out before you just go to a show and just pick out a gun that someone just wants to get rid of, go see what works for you. Better to know what you're getting into than just a guess, a shot in the dark. Everybody have a great day, and we'll be right back.